So welcome everybody, my name is Paul. I'm a country realtor out in the western part of Virginia, and I talk a lot about buying and selling property as my specialty in rural areas and countryside, homesteads, raw land, recreation, that sort of thing. And each time I make a video, I try to upgrade them, make them improve, and I'm going to share a little bit about a few different books and add a little bit of interest to the episode here. But first I'm going to talk a little bit about this book here, which is Practicing Primitive. Very, very fascinating book. If you're into that thing, bushwhacking and the way people lived and how they made use of resources. For example, they would take an antler of a deer and make an axe out of it, or make some kind of a pick or something, or a digger. And of course you have knives and so on. But anyway, it's a fascinating book, and I thought maybe some of the people who listen to this might like this book and check it out. Another quick one here. This is a little bit earlier from the 80s, but Harnessing the Sun. A lot of people think these days only about solar cells in a way to harness the sun, but there's a lot of older ways to harness sun with just the architecture, whether you embed your home into the right angle to the sun, or if you want to cool it, you can put part of the house under a slope of a ground or something like that. So it's kind of fascinating. A lot of it is a little bit older technology, but it's talking about basically heat sinks and how to manipulate the way that air flows inside of a building for maximum efficiency and so on. But now I'm going to talk a little bit about the old adage, as they say, is a penny saved is a penny earned. That's what we're going to talk about today, because this is an old adage, but it comes from the country life. A lot of people the young people these days don't know. For example, my parents' generation, they grew up in the 20s and 30s, and they had severe problems. I mean, imagine, 1929, there was a depression, and it went on for years, and the Midwest of the United States was very hot, and crops didn't manifest, and there was serious problems, okay? And people had to become very resourceful. So they learned to sew their own clothes and do all kinds of stuff for themselves. So a lot of people these days, we don't understand, like all this technology that we have, it's very sophisticated, but we don't know how it works half the time, you see? But the human beings have survived without that kind of technology for literally hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, you see? So if you talk about just survival and being content and happy in terms of taking care of your basic needs, it doesn't have to be as complicated as modern civilization makes it out to be. So it's a matter of the attitude and using the resources. For example, when you start to buy land or property. Now, I'm in the real estate business, and people look for land and so on. They want some piece of property. I try to counsel them and say, look, when you look for a piece of property, don't just look, well, does it have a nice house or whatever? Does it have anything else on it? I mean, because there's 100,000, there's really $1 million homes, and they got nothing. They just got, like, some developer came there and slapped a bunch of shrubs there, and you got to have the special mulch in it, and someone mows your lawn. You don't have to take care of that, but it's just like all like Legoland, like all. It's not, there's no character, you see, and the people who live there they don't know how to mow their lawn a lot of times. In some of these communities, they have someone do it, they don't even, they don't know how to make a garden or anything. So what I'm saying is the penny saved it means a lot, because if you can save on your money, let's say you need $60,000, you think you need $60,000 a year to live on for your basic needs, maybe a household or something, okay? Well, what if you could eliminate 15,000 of that? You could probably eliminate 5,000 or 6,000 just on a commute. I mean, people spend extraordinary amounts of money just commuting to their job. If you ever think about that, if it costs you, let's say you make $200 a day, okay, if you're lucky, okay. Well, if it costs you $40 a day just to get to work and back, plus your taxes and all the other things, and you got to park and all that. Boy, that doesn't add up to very much. Pretty soon it just goes away, whatever you're earning is dissipating, you see. So part of it is, when people live out in the country, you have to learn some new skills, okay? It's just important. Okay, let's say you have a well. You never had a well in the suburb. You never had a septic tank in the suburb, and now you have a well in a septic tank. Okay, well, look it up. Septic and well been the common way of living for a really, really long time. It's very common out in the countryside, but learn about them again, how they work, and once in a while the well pump will go by it. Well, can you fix it? Yeah, well, if you know what the happens is, first of all, you avoid the problem by doing certain things, and then when you do have a problem, you know who to call and you know what to expect, and frankly, a well pump going bad is a very rare occasion, but now and then it does. So what I'm suggesting is people learn some skills, get some basic tools, and learn how to use them. Okay, maybe you're female, or maybe you're male or female, whatever, you're not comfortable with tools. Hey, you know what? Get comfortable with it, because if you want to live on the country, you better get comfortable with using some tools now and then. You see? Now, things that I would recommend to get, learn how to use, for example, an electric meter. This meter right here, they're not very difficult to use. You don't have to know all about electronics, but you can learn how to learn one of these meters, and you can find out if a socket's working, or you can do a lot of different kinds of tests with this meter, but you don't have to be an electrician, okay? So you learn some skills like that. For example, get an air compressor, get various kinds of little pumps. I have a couple of pumps that run off a battery, and if I want to pump water, I can just hook it up to any car battery or whatever, and speaking of batteries, learn how to charge one. Get a charger. Say, hey, one day you wake up and have your battery, left your lights on. Well, okay. Do you call a tow truck and pay $150 to come, on a Sunday morning or something? Or you just, I got a charger. Sorry, hook it up. Go back in your house and wait for a little while, and you got yourself a charger, a charged up battery. Same thing with things like tires. I've walked out of my front door one time and my tire was flat. One of my tires are flat. Like, yeah, well, thank you for doing it right in front of my driveway here, but fortunately I had a pump, you see. Now, there's different things that you can use on your property. For example, a generator can come in really handy, some kind of solar panels. You don't have to worry. Speaking of solar right now, solar power, I suggest people try to get a backup system for solar power. Don't try to power all the things in your house and all the TVs and everything with, solar. It's just way, way too much. You don't need that much power. You need to charge your batteries. You need to charge your phone. You need a few lights. And speaking of lights, if you get into a situation where you need to power some lights, a really simple, cheap $3 string of Christmas lights, the white ones, okay? They don't use much electricity at all, but you put 100 of them in the living room and you got yourself some light. It's fine, okay? You can deal. And they're so cheap. And have something like that around, because you can use another thing to get is an inverter. An inverter connects to a car battery or something like that, and then it produces an AC output, and you can plug in different things, and you can have your USB and a lot of them now. Get yourself an inverter. An inverter, a battery charger, a air compressor, and I don't have one, but really it's a good thing to have if you really get into it, is to get a welder, some kind of way to weld or something, okay? And various kinds of pumps that run off a battery. God forbid something happen, okay, if you live near a stream or some other thing like a pond, you can always pump water for irrigation or filter it through and drink it or whatever. So there's things like that you just learn how to operate them, okay? And there's many, many things on YouTube, but you can learn how to do anything out there on YouTube now. Things to learn how to use is a weed whacker, a chainsaw. Get yourself, the various tools that you need to change a spark plug on something like that. If you have a long tractor, get the operation manual. Again, just learn the skills, because you can save yourself so much trouble. It's not just money you save. When you can fix things yourself, you save so much time and aggravation, and you have a confidence level that's very different. Because, for example, when my mower goes down, I don't fret. I just go get some tools and take a look and go find out what's wrong and fix it. Or if it's beyond hope, I just get another one, a used one. So what I'm getting at is the old adage of, like I started this episode here, it's just a penny saved is a penny earned. If whatever money that you could save and learning how to do things yourself and having the right tools to do them, it'll just save so much time and aggravation. Now, a lot of people don't know, there's little things that we each get creative about and finding out different ways to save money. I love to have people share with me things that they did on their property to save money. But you can, for example, if you have any kind of cedar trees on your property, well, you can trim them down and you can make fence posts. So you can use, for example, let's say there's chestnuts on your property, and maybe there's good hardwoods. Maybe you can thin some of your forest part, and you don't have to thin everything, but trees are a crop, and you need to kind of thin them out a little bit. So you get some of them, you harvest them, you make firewood, you save yourself some that way, okay? Find rocks. I met a guy one time, he was selling rocks. He had a property with some really cool big old rocks on it. He had one that was had a price of like $10,000, okay? You needed like a big truck to move it, but if you want to pay 10 grand, you can have this big old rock and put it on your property, and there are people out there who would get it. Because if you have a huge 300-acre estate or something and you have a big entry driveway, you would say, well, I'm going to have a real impressive rock there, and put a giant rock on your property. People do that stuff. So, you can find quartz, and there's sandstone, there's things like mica, there's, granite. I mean, there's things that if you can find gravel on your property, you can use the rocks, for example, to build your own fire pit, or you can build some things, some driveway things, or perimeter around your driveway, or build a little wall or something like that. You can use all those materials instead of going down to Lowe's and buying a pallet full of stuff and having someone bring it. You just look around your property. Maybe you have something already there that you can use. Trees is a big whole subject. I'm not an expert in trees, but boy, if you find certain trees on your property, like American chestnuts, and they produce those chestnuts, and you just every autumn they just rain down, tens of pounds of these really nice chestnuts that you can store and eat and sell. So things that you can do really simply, you don't have to be an expert in anything. I'm not an expert in many things, okay? I have my own specialties and so on, but I can't afford to be, for example, a carpenter, and I haven't learned how to be an official carpenter. And same with electrician, but I have enough electrical knowledge and enough woodworking knowledge and enough tool knowledge so that I understand when someone diagnoses a problem, what the problem is, and there's many situations where I can actually solve the problem myself. For example, the home I'm in the bedroom, not finished. And the good news for me was that, hey, what they did was they opened up 2 bedrooms and made 1 large bedroom, and then it had 1 private bath, and it had two closets, okay? One of the closets was nicely finished. I had to finish the second closet, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of sheet rocking here, and so I need some ceiling stuff done. But the house is an old, simple house. Again, some of those older houses, if they're too old, yeah, they're crap, okay? But there's some of these old houses, if they're 100 years old and they still look nice, I mean, they're built like rocks, Some of those old plaster and lath walls are just like, you could pound on them with a hammer and you might make a dent, but, not like sheetrock. You could punch that with your finger practically, you see? So there's drawbacks and assets about different kinds of housing. But let's say you get a house. This is a 1946, okay? It's a simple Cape house. It has a tin roof, metal roof. It lasts with probably the original one, and it has one side faces east, one side faces west. It's low as a surface area, and it collects tons of rain. Every time in a thunderstorm, I can get 50, 75 gallons, and, I had no problem with water. So it's a simple house, okay? Up in the rafters, there's a little bit of things I need to take care of, and they did some remodeling and everything, and I strengthened the walls in the bedroom, and there's things you can do to a simple house. When you start getting some of these overly complicated modern houses, it's like, oh my God, And I really suggest, especially if you're a first-time housing buyer, go for something that's manageable. Don't try to buy your mansion the first time you buy your house, the first house you buy. Like, oh, honey, look at this, okay? It's only $590,000, and look how big the living room is. And, if you're young, a lot of people, there are buyers who get house poor because what they do is they buy the top that they think that they can afford, and then they have nothing extra to maintain their house or just do anything fun, you see. So you buy a house, a property that's manageable for you. Okay, there are people who overbuy. They buy a piece of land and they, oh my God, now I got to buy a tractor, and now I got to do this, and now I got to fix the driveway, and now I got to fix the bridge and over the stream, and then it goes on like that. See, so think carefully about when you buy a property. Again, the old adage, a penny saved is penny earned. Okay, so let's say you find a house, okay, a little bit cheaper, a little bit smaller, but you can save the money that you've spent on, instead of buying a bigger house, you can use that money to customize it or develop the property or save for repairs or something like that, you see. So there's a lot of thought that goes into buying a house and living in a homestead life. Again, the definition of homestead for me is just a household that is somewhat self-sufficient, and we take care of some of our own needs, and we try to do maybe some food production and so on. Maybe have a small business on the property, but basically the idea is to get more self-sufficient than the typical suburban life where people live in a cul-de-sac and so on, and everybody has the same kind of house basically. So again, thank you for listening. I hope to hear some of your feedback and some ideas that you have for saving money. And what have you done in your property or in your life that saved money in your household expenses? I've known people who quit their job because they was just commuting too many miles, and they had to make a big sacrifice. They quit a good paying job, but then in the retrospect, they live, now they're producing in a totally different lifestyle. It's just you have to make some mental arrangements in your mind to think, okay, I'm not going to be doing the commute anymore, or I'm going to have a little bit different kind of a lifestyle. Or maybe sometimes you might have to live, the first step might be to live outside the city a little bit, and in some cases you might have to commute a little bit further. But you're making that sacrifice just for a while so that you can get established in this new place a little bit further from the city. And then once you get established, then you can quit your job and stop the commute. So there's a lot of ways of getting yourself into a situation where you're living in a more rural lifestyle and simpler, self-contained type of lifestyle. And like I said, I hope you see some of my other videos, and please give me your feedback, and please like and share if you get anything valuable from this content. I hope to see you in some of my other videos.